Craig, thank you so much for taking the time. And I would like today to speak about your philanthropy work. Also, why journalism has been somewhat one of your favorite areas to support.
Well, a trustworthy press is the immune system of democracy. Our country relies on that to survive. In particular, it relies on the press and others fighting for free and fair elections. And that's why I focus on journalism and voter protection. I'm also trying to help the people who, in the longer run, protect American democracy or build it up more strongly. And this includes a whole bunch of groups, including veterans, their families, and women who are trying to get into the tech field. In my mind, all those things work together. However, right now, the greatest crisis is with the election and how it's covered by the press.
I was watching some of your previous TED Talks. And 10 years ago, you were talking about the issues of disinformation, right? When wasn't everybody talking about it? Like in the last 2 years or so, or since the 2016 election, we have seen a lot more of that. And the conversation really, the Cambridge Analytica scandal, that conversation became public, everybody talks about it. And people have a better understanding, people who don't work in journalism or in the news media or in communications, right? Or in technology for that matter. But in 2010, you were talking about these issues already of disinformation in your TED Talks.
I was already talking to people who were really smart about the press, but also how it's weaponized. Sometimes there are people I've met through the Aspen Institute, and then there's people like Jeff Jarvis and so on, who I'd already been talking to for a long time. That also includes Kelly McBride at the Poynter Institute. And she's been giving me a lot of good advice about journalism and journalism ethics. So over time, I kept realizing and learning more and more. I should have paid attention to things that I had already learned. For example, a long time ago, I saw a quote from Marshall McLuhan, which said that World War III is an information war, a guerrilla information war, fought equally by military and civilian participants. That has been true for a long, long time. And only over time did I realize it more and more. I should have realized it in 2006 when people started talking with me about it. I only really started understanding it in 2017 when somebody, Jeff Jarvis, gave me the NATO handbook on Russian information warfare.
You also have funded an organization called the Markup, which focuses on issues of big tech and how can big tech, work with societies instead of against it, right? Of supporting democracy instead of, creating divisiveness in societies, not only in America, but in other countries as well. So what led you to that realization that you needed to create an organization that would focus precisely on the question of, we are all asking now, how can big tech be good?
You're giving me much too much credit. Julia Angwin and others founded the Markup. I just helped give it its initial funding. However, I've seen that technology can be used both for good purposes and for bad purposes. I learned that, 50, 60 years ago when I wanted to be a physicist and I read a lot about the development of nuclear weapons. So when Julia and others approached me about the Markup, that made a great deal of sense to me. And so I decided that I should help them out. And they're doing great work. Last week, they announced the development of a tool which allows you to see what trackers are being placed in your browser by websites. I think it's called Blacklight, and it's really, really useful. The idea is that, again, technology can be used for good, it can be used for evil, and sometimes both at the same time. And so regular people, we need some help figuring out what's going on. And that means good reporting from organizations like the Markup.
What again brings you to focus on those areas of trustworthiness of the press?
Well, again, like my high school history teacher taught us, a trustworthy press is the immune system of democracy. And of course, that immune system failed in 2016 and needs help even now. On a more personal basis, this all has to do with trust. And it has to do with trust on a societal level, as I've just talked about maybe too much, but also our daily lives rely on who we trust. For example, my wife and I just purchased some air filters, given that we live in San Francisco and the wildfires have put a lot of smoke in the air. But we needed help looking for really good recommendations on what are good, reliable air filters. So we went to a number of sources. One of them was Consumer Reports, which is part of Consumers International, and they provide good recommendations as well. So trust applies at all our levels of existence, from the big societal and civilizational level to just getting through the day.
And you have another initiative, which also is very, very interesting, which is the consumer publication, the lab that you have there. Tell us a little bit about how that works.
Well, again, don't you give me too much credit. I'm just helping Consumer Reports do what they need to do. And some time ago, I realized that technology is becoming more and more a part of our lives, and not enough attention was paid to privacy and security issues. I tell people that I love watching TV, but I don't love TV watching me. Meanwhile, we rely on the Internet of Things to do useful things for us, but also to provide for our security, and we needed to be able to trust that technology. Consumer Reports has been active in the space of technology and its usefulness for over 80 years. 80 years ago, washing machines were high technology. So when they proposed a digital privacy lab, that made a great deal of sense to me, and I decided to support it.
And tell us a bit about the women in tech. What led you to the realization that you needed to also focus on that?
Well, my primary motivation in all areas actually is fairness. I think you want to treat people like you want to be treated. And that means, yeah, again, being fair to everyone. And even in college in the early 70s, I saw that women were playing a larger and larger role in technology. But then somehow that stopped in the 80s. So when someone approached me about 10 years ago about women in technology, that made sense to me. And I decided I should do something to help out. That motivated that specific role. Now it's expanding in different areas, but the basic theme is fairness, treating everyone the same. And well, I also see that in a lot of areas, including cybersecurity, throughout the world, we need lots and lots of talented people in that area. So recently I decided to support the Girl Scouts of America, specifically the Girl Scouts of New York, and they have a really good cybersecurity merit badge program. The theme is support everyone in technology, but particularly groups who look like they can do a really good job and really soon.
More, what is on your agenda for the coming year?
Um, well, mostly the US needs to survive the election. Come next January, we still need to be in a functioning democracy. Beyond that, there are other areas I'm looking at. For example, I finally realized seriously that hunger is a problem in America. It's been a problem for a long time, but with the pandemic, it's suddenly becoming much, much worse. And I should do something about that. And so I'm starting to do something about that. And I will be announcing it in the near future. But again, the pattern is the same. Find people who are doing a really good work in some area and give away resources to them with the conditions that they allow me to help with communications. They allow me to help with safety issues, because sometimes good actors are attacked by bad actors. And again, they do have to put up with my sense of humor sometimes.
And I think that you have worked also in supporting organizations that work with refugees in Northern Africa, as well as Haiti, and also, of course, in the endeavors you are now leading within New York and the US. But what led you to do the work out internationally, and are you looking to do that, to continue to do that?
Well, I do some work internationally, most notably working with the International Journalism Festival held in Perugia normally every year. So there's a number of things I'm trying to do, but in the US, we need to preserve our democracy. So that's driven most of my attentions this year.